Hi. Hola.
Hi, hier ist Mr. Döse.
This is Michael Bradley.
Hey, I'm Memphis.
Hey.
Hola. Hello.
I'm here with soccer.com.
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 And I'm talking with my friends soccer.com.
See you soon.
Now that you guys got to watch me screw around with the ball a little bit, let's talk about what it's like to actually wear the Ace 17 Plus PureControl, because really what I want to focus on here is the experience of wearing this shoe versus the tech specs. If you guys want to learn more about the tech specs and every little detail about the product itself and its makeup, I'll leave a little pop-up on screen to my standard review format video on this particular shoe. Go ahead and check it out if you haven't seen it already. But basically with this shoe, for me, the key talking point is the laceless system. The fact that this is laceless means that there is a lack of adjustability. A lot of people view the laceless aspect of this shoe as a really, really positive and intriguing, technical feature, and to a certain extent, it is actually a pretty good achievement in terms of how the shoe actually does fit and perform overall. With that being said, it's also the major downfall of this particular product, and something that's really going to vary in terms of your own experience from person to person based on how this shoe fits you specifically. With a normal shoe, you have a predetermined shape, and then that shape can be adjusted and tightened by way of shoelaces. Because there aren't any laces on this shoe, instead you have a predetermined shape, you have an outside layer that's reinforced internally and externally, and then an internal tech fit system made from an elasticated microfiber that's essentially replacing the laces. That's what's fastening your foot inside of the shoe. And to a certain extent, it does that quite well. I find that the shape of this newer 17 Plus variation fits my foot a little bit better than the 16 Plus PureControl, but I've also heard people complain about the shape of the 17 Plus versus the 16 Plus, and people saying that they preferred the fit of the previous model. Again, that's one of the quirks of a laceless system. You have to try them on to really feel whether or not the shoe fits you the way that you would like it to. For me personally, the 17 Plus definitely does fit me better, so it's an improvement in that regard, but that won't necessarily be the case for everybody. As far as this version 2 variation is concerned, you get prime knit at the toe and then a control skin material, that's what it's called, for the rest of the upper. Essentially, it's an elasticated textile that is mostly covered over with a fuse material, so it's not necessarily all that stretchy, except for through the middle at the top and then along the sides where you see the mid-cut collar aspect of the shoe. The overall touch in comparison to the 16 Plus and the original full prime knit 17 Plus is one that feels a little bit thinner and a little bit more consistent across the entire foot, which I again think is a nice improvement. The shoe doesn't feel as bulky to me, which is a nice thing to have overall. As far as touch is concerned as a whole, the shoe is on the thinner side of things, but there's a good amount of layers. You have layers internally that you don't necessarily see on the shoe, but you definitely do feel. So in terms of touch on the ball, it doesn't have an overly padded sensation, but there definitely is a decent amount of material between your foot and the ball. So again, it has that thinner sensation, but the actual feedback is not necessarily that of more of a barefoot style shoe like you would get from, say, a Nike Mercurial Vapor 11. So that's something to consider in regards to the upper. And as far as the finish is concerned, it's left fairly slick. There's really not a whole lot of extra grip on the ball, but overall the touch is very, very clean, so nothing really to complain about there. For me, my major complaint in regards to this shoe and the laceless system is the actual internal tech fit system, and it's the same problem that I had with the original 16 Plus PureControl. Internally, now it's a synthetic material versus a prime knit material, but the same issue remains in that it's elasticated. So once you put your foot inside there, it's gonna fit fairly snug, but fairly snug isn't going to do it in terms of giving you the best possible lockdown, especially upon more intense movements. What's really interesting about the PureControl for me personally is that I put these on and they feel fairly comfortable. There's a little bit of pressure in the heel based on this laceless system and just not, again, having sufficient lockdown, but it's not necessarily something that I can't deal with. And really, I think that if I were just to go and do a light session, I wouldn't have any issues with this shoe at all. With that being said, upon taking 10, 12, 15 different free kicks or 15 shots, I really find that my plant foot especially runs into the issue of not having sufficient lockdown. When I plant my foot, which is a pretty harsh force, or even just stopping in a forward direction where your toes have that potential to slide forward, they do end up sliding forward because, again, that internal piece will stretch, it is elasticated, and it's not providing that 100% lockdown security that you would get from a shoe that has laces. So for me, that toe jamming effect is something that I find to be a little bit uncomfortable with the PureControl, and for me that's one of the major reasons why I'm still not a big fan of the laceless system. Side to side, the stability and responsiveness that you get from this upper is decent, again, considering the laceless system. There is still a good amount of rollover. It's not as bad as you might expect it to be, but this is definitely not the most responsive shoe out there. The weight is fairly average for a high-end shoe, being at about 8.5 ounces in a size 9 US, but they certainly do not feel heavy on feet. And then moving on to the Soleplate, which does of course have the boost foam at the base of the sole, with that boost foam insole, a total of 6 millimeters of boost foam, which sounds like a very exciting feature. It's one of the main things they are promoting with the new 17 Plus PureControl, but the end result is something that I found to be very, very underwhelming, and most people who have tried these out will definitely agree with me. If you're expecting these to feel like boost foam running shoes, unfortunately that is not the case. Despite having all that boost foam on the inside of the shoe, it really does feel like a standard insole setup. Nothing special whatsoever, but not a negative thing either. Just not the overwhelmingly good thing that Adidas is marketing it as. It does of course have a sprint frame construction for the sole plate itself, which does give it that fairly lightweight, decently flexible design. I will give it that. The shoe doesn't feel as stiff as the original 16 Plus just because the materials are a little bit thinner. And as far as the stud pattern is concerned, this is the firm ground AG stud pattern. It's a combination stud pattern, meaning that you can use it on firm natural grass and artificial grass. Obviously in the video, I was wearing it indoors on an artificial grass surface. Not the best AG stud pattern that I've ever worn. It definitely is more of a firm ground stud pattern, but it will hold up in regards to durability. And I personally didn't have any issues with it. It's the same layout you're gonna find across the entire Adidas brand at the moment. And for the most part, it does get the job done. So all in all, I think that the 17 Plus PureControl is definitely an improvement over the 16 Plus in regards to the actual upper itself being a little bit more streamlined, a little bit less bulky, but everything else is something that is gonna be an improvement or a negative change based again on how these fit your feet. And that to me is still the major downfall of the laceless system. Is it worth the $300 price tag? If they fit you really well and you absolutely must have a laceless boot, then yes, it's probably going to be a pretty good experience for you. But I think at that $300 price point, if we're talking pure performance, there are better options available. Obviously nothing quite like the PureControl, but just because it's different doesn't necessarily mean that it's better. And that's really the key takeaway here with my review on this particular shoe. It definitely does get a pass as a high-end product, but for me personally, if you're talking about the top-end price point, $300 and being the best of the best, it doesn't kind of live up to the best of the best price point in my opinion. So that's pretty much it for my review. If you guys do have any questions regarding anything that I talked about in this video, leave it down below in the comment section and I definitely will get an answer out to you. If you enjoyed today's playtest video, found it helpful and informative, be sure to support it with a like. Let me know down below in the comments as well which playtest you would like to see recorded next, as far as what specific shoe you'd like to see. Subscribe if you haven't already for daily videos on all the latest and greatest soccer gear. You can find all of my social media information linked down below in the description as well. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.